She was invited to her billionaire ex-husband's wedding by his cruel mother. Everyone froze when she arrived in a $500 million private jet with secret triplets. "You gold-digging snake!" Eleanor Carter's voice echoed through the mansion's grand hall. "You think you deserve to be part of this family? You're nothing but a charity case my son picked up." Ava Mitchell stood her ground, trembling but dignified. "I've never wanted your money, Eleanor. I love Nicholas for who he is, not his last name." "Love?" Eleanor sneered, stepping closer. "Girls like you don't know the meaning of the word." "Please stop," Ava whispered, tears threatening to fall. "This has gone on long enough." The sound of Eleanor's palm striking Ava's cheek cracked through the air like a gunshot. Before Ava could even register the sting, Eleanor crumpled to the floor with a theatrical wail. "She hit me!" Eleanor screamed as household staff rushed in. "Nicholas! Your wife attacked me!" Nicholas Carter burst through the doors, his eyes darting between his sobbing mother on the floor and his stunned wife standing above her. "I can't believe you would lay a hand on her," he said, his voice ice-cold as he knelt beside his mother. "Nicholas, I didn't. She hit me first, I swear," Ava pleaded, reaching for him. "Have you ever had your entire world shattered by someone who was supposed to love you unconditionally? Someone who chose to believe the worst about you without even asking for your side of the story? If you've ever been betrayed by the person you trusted most, give this video a like, because the revenge that follows will make your heart soar. Hi, my beautiful sisters. Before we get into today's story, I want to remind you of something important. Sometimes the people we love the most will believe lies about us. They'll turn away not because we did wrong, but because they couldn't see our truth. But listen to me, your value doesn't vanish because someone failed to recognize it. No matter how the world tries to break you, keep your head high, keep your peace. And when it's time, your strength will speak louder than any rumor, and your growth will silence every lie. So if you're listening right now, I want you to type this in the comments. My peace is my power. Because real victory isn't in revenge. It's in becoming everything they said you couldn't be. I'm Mr. Harrison, and today I'm sharing the remarkable story of a woman who lost everything, only to rise from the ashes stronger than anyone could have imagined. Before Ava Mitchell became the formidable CEO of a multi-billion-dollar tech empire, she was simply a brilliant young woman with dreams bigger than her circumstances. Growing up in a modest neighborhood in Chicago, Ava had always been exceptional, graduating top of her class, earning scholarships that her family could never have afforded, and eventually landing a coveted position at Carter Enterprises, one of the country's largest conglomerates. "Your resume is impressive, Ms. Mitchell," Nicholas Carter had said during her interview, his gray eyes studying her with unexpected warmth. "But what interests me more is what isn't on paper. Why technology? Why Carter Enterprises specifically?" Ava hadn't given him the rehearsed answer she'd prepared. Instead, she spoke from the heart. Because technology should serve everyone, not just those who can afford it. And because Carter Enterprises has the resources to make that happen, if it chooses to. Her boldness had surprised them both. Most candidates tiptoed around the billionaire CEO, careful not to challenge or contradict. But Ava had never learned to make herself small, even in the presence of power. Nicholas had smiled then, a genuine smile that transformed his usually serious face. "Most people tell me what they think I want to hear. You just told me what I need to hear." That was the beginning. Ava quickly proved herself invaluable, her innovative ideas and ethical approach to business catching Nicholas's attention time and again. Their professional relationship evolved into friendship, and then, despite the whispers and raised eyebrows throughout the company, into something deeper. "They're saying I only promoted you because we're dating," Nicholas told her one evening as they walked through Central Park, away from the prying eyes of colleagues and business associates. Ava had stopped walking, turning to face him directly. "And what do you say to that?" "I say they're half right," he'd replied, taking her hand. "I promoted you because you're brilliant. I'm dating you because you're the first person who's ever seen me as just Nicholas, not as the Carter heir or the CEO." Their love story should have been simple. Two people who respected and challenged each other, who shared values and vision despite their different backgrounds. But there was one obstacle neither of them had fully prepared for: Eleanor Carter. From the moment Nicholas introduced Ava to his mother, Eleanor had made her disapproval crystal clear. Not through outright rejection, Eleanor was too sophisticated for that, but through 1,000 tiny cuts disguised as concern. "Darling, are you sure Ava will be comfortable at the charity gala? These events can be so intimidating for people who aren't used to our world. Nicholas, I've set you up with Victoria Astor for the museum benefit. Ava won't mind, will she? It's just business, after all. I'm just worried she's moving rather quickly into your life. A woman in her position, well, one has to consider all possibilities." Nicholas had defended Ava initially, brushing off his mother's concerns with good-natured rebuttals. "Mother, Ava graduated from Harvard. I think she can handle a charity gala." Or, "Mother, Ava isn't in a position. She's the most talented executive in my company." But Eleanor was patient and persistent. Like water wearing away its stone, she worked to erode Nicholas's confidence in his relationship, planting seeds of doubt that would later bloom into suspicion. Despite Eleanor's interference, Nicholas proposed to Ava after a year of dating, presenting her with a ring that had belonged to his grandmother. A woman who, he told Ava, valued character over status, just like you do. The wedding was intimate by Carter standards, only 300 guests instead of the 1,000 Eleanor had pushed for. Ava wore a gown that balanced elegance with simplicity, her natural beauty needing no extravagant embellishment. And when Nicholas recited his vows, promising to stand by her in joy and sorrow, in plenty and want, in success and failure, Ava had believed him with her whole heart. For a while they were happy. Ava continued to rise through the ranks at Carter Enterprises, her division's profits doubling under her leadership. Nicholas began implementing her vision for more accessible technology, launching initiatives that brought cutting-edge innovations to underserved communities. Together, they were not just successful but meaningful, a power couple using their influence for positive change. But Eleanor never stopped her campaign. When Nicholas was away on business, she would invite Ava to lunch, ostensibly to bond, but really to remind her of all the ways she didn't belong. She questioned Ava's decisions, undermined her authority with the household staff, and constantly referenced Nicholas's ex-girlfriends, all from suitable families. "You know, Nicholas and Sophia Westfield dated for nearly 2 years, Eleanor would say casually. "Her father sits on 3 international boards. Such a lovely family. They still ask about him." Ava tried to build bridges, to find common ground with the woman who had raised the man she loved. "I know you want what's best for Nicholas," she told Eleanor during one particularly tense dinner. "So do I. Can't that be enough?" Eleanor had smiled thinly. "What's best for my son is his birthright. To lead this family and this company with someone who understands our legacy. I'm not convinced that's you, my dear." The final confrontation came 18 months into their marriage. Ava had discovered she was pregnant but hadn't yet told Nicholas, wanting to surprise him when he returned from a business trip to Tokyo. She'd gone to the Carter mansion to share the news with the household staff who had become like family to her, unaware that Eleanor was hosting a luncheon for her society friends. Ava overheard Eleanor in the drawing room, her voice carrying clearly through the partially open door. "Of course I'm worried about Nicholas's judgment lately. The company initiatives for those inner-city schools are bleeding money, and that's entirely Ava's influence. She's changing him, and not for the better." "You never approved of her, did you, Eleanor?" one of the women asked. "How could I? She's clever, I'll grant her that. Worked her way into his heart and his company. But mark my words, she's after the Carter fortune. Women like her always are." Ava had pushed open the door then, unable to listen to another word. "Women like me, Eleanor? Educated women? Hardworking women? Or just women you've decided aren't good enough because they weren't born into wealth?" The confrontation escalated quickly, Eleanor's carefully maintained facade crumbling as Ava refused to back down. And then came the slap, the fall, the accusation, and Nicholas's devastating choice to believe his mother over his wife. Within a week, divorce papers were delivered to the hotel where Ava had been staying. Nicholas hadn't called, hadn't texted, hadn't given her any opportunity to explain. The papers cited irreconcilable differences and offered a settlement that, while generous by normal standards, felt like a pittance compared to what Ava had lost: her marriage, her job, her faith in love itself. It was only after signing the papers that Ava confirmed what she had suspected. She was pregnant, not with one child, but 3 triplets. 3 innocent lives who would bear the Carter genes, but if Ava had anything to say about it, none of the Carter cruelty. "I won't fight you for money," she had written in her final communication to Nicholas. "Keep it all. The only thing I ask is that you never contact me again. If you've ever had to start over from absolute zero, with your heart shattered and your trust broken, hit that like button. And if you believe that the best revenge is living well, subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison. Because what Ava Mitchell did next will show you exactly what true strength looks like." The doctor's words still echoed in Ava's mind as she sat alone in her small apartment, staring at the ultrasound images spread across her coffee table. "Congratulations, Ms. Mitchell. You're carrying triplets. Triplets. 3 heartbeats. 3 futures to protect. 3 reasons to rebuild everything she had lost." The first months were the hardest. Morning sickness that lasted all day, the physical strain of carrying 3 growing babies, and the emotional weight of doing it all alone. Ava had withdrawn her modest savings and rented a simple 2-bedroom apartment far from the luxury she had known as Nicholas's wife. She applied for jobs under her maiden name, hoping to avoid the whispers that would inevitably follow the ex-Mrs. Carter. "We're looking for someone with more recent experience," one interviewer told her, not meeting her eyes. "Your qualifications are impressive, but we're concerned about your ability to commit long-term," said another, glancing pointedly at her growing belly. By her 6th month of pregnancy, Ava had been rejected from 12 positions she was overqualified for. Her savings were dwindling, and the reality of supporting 3 newborns loomed like an approaching storm. But if there was one thing Eleanor Carter had taught her, it was that when backed into a corner, you either break or you fight. Ava chose to fight. Late one night, unable to sleep as the triplets kicked restlessly inside her, Ava began sketching an idea that had been forming in her mind. An AI-driven platform that could make advanced technology accessible to small businesses and educational institutions that couldn't afford enterprise-level solutions. She worked until dawn, filling pages with code architecture and business models. The next day, she called the one person from her previous life she still trusted: Marcus Chen, a brilliant developer who had worked under her at Carter Enterprises and had quit in protest after her departure. "I need a partner," she told him bluntly when they met at a quiet cafe. "Someone who believes in democratizing technology as much as I do. Someone who isn't afraid of starting from nothing." Marcus studied the business plan she'd created, his expression shifting from curiosity to excitement. "This could work, Ava, but it would take significant investment, and venture capital firms aren't exactly lining up to fund heavily pregnant women with no current income." "Then we bootstrap," Ava replied, determination hardening her voice. "I have enough to keep us afloat for 3 months. By then, we need a working prototype to attract angel investors." Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "I'm in. But what are we calling this venture?" Ava looked out the cafe window at the horizon stretching beyond the city skyline. Horizon Technologies. Because no matter how dark the night, the dawn always comes. They worked from Ava's apartment, converting the 2nd bedroom into a makeshift office. Marcus handled the technical development while Ava, despite her advancing pregnancy, focused on the business strategy and initial client outreach. They worked 18-hour days, fueled by determination and instant noodles. 2 weeks before her due date, Ava secured their first client, a community college desperate for affordable technology solutions. The contract wasn't large, but it was proof of concept. Proof that her vision had value. The triplets arrived on a stormy April morning, 2 boys and a girl, each perfect and strong despite being born slightly premature. Ava named them Noah, Ethan, and Grace. As she held them for the first time, exhausted but exhilarated, she made them a silent promise. They would never know want. They would never feel unwanted. and they would grow up knowing their worth came from within, not from a last name or a bank account. They have his eyes, the nurse commented innocently, unaware of the story behind the 3 newborns with distinctive gray eyes. They have their own eyes, Ava corrected gently, and they'll see the world their own way. Motherhood and entrepreneurship proved a brutal combination. Ava worked with the triplets sleeping beside her, took investor calls while nursing, and presented pitches with burp cloths hidden just out of video frame. Marcus became not just a business partner but a surrogate uncle to the children, stepping in when Ava needed an extra pair of hands or a few hours of uninterrupted sleep. Their breakthrough came when the triplets were 8 months old. An educational technology conference in San Francisco, where Ava presented their AI platform to a room full of skeptical industry veterans. She had brought the triplets with her, unable to leave them behind, and had paid a local college student to watch them in the hotel room during her presentation. Ms. Mitchell, one investor had challenged during the Q&A, "Your technology is impressive, but your company lacks the infrastructure and capital to scale. Why should any serious institution take a chance on Horizon?" Ava had smiled, thinking of the 3 babies waiting for her upstairs. "Because we understand something the tech giants have forgotten. Innovation isn't about who has the most resources. It's about who has the most resourcefulness. Horizon was built from nothing, by people who refused to accept limitations. That's exactly the spirit we bring to our clients' challenges." By the time she returned to the hotel room, Horizon had secured its first major investor and 3 new clients. The dawn she had promised Marcus was finally breaking. The next 4 years were a blur of growth, both for Horizon Technologies and for the triplets. The company expanded rapidly, its revolutionary approach to AI accessibility filling a market gap no one else had addressed. Ava's vision of technology that served everyone, not just the wealthy, resonated with clients from school districts to small businesses to international nonprofits. Noah, Ethan, and Grace thrived under their mother's loving but firm guidance. They were bright, curious children who inherited Ava's quick mind and, though she would never admit it aloud, Nicholas's natural charisma. They attended a progressive preschool where they were known simply as the Mitchell triplets. Their Carter heritage a secret Ava kept closely guarded. "Mommy, why don't we have a daddy?" Grace asked one evening as Ava tucked her into bed. At 4, she was already the most perceptive of the 3, with an emotional intelligence that sometimes caught Ava off guard. "Some families have a mommy and daddy, some have 2 mommies or 2 daddies, and some, like ours, have just one parent," Ava explained, smoothing Grace's dark curls. "But what matters isn't how many people are in a family, it's how much love there is." "But where is our daddy?" Ethan persisted from his own bed across the room. "Did he die?" Ava took a deep breath. She had always promised herself she would never lie to her children, even about their father. "No, he didn't die. He lives in New York. But he doesn't know about you 3. "Why not?" Noah asked, his gray eyes, so like Nicholas's, wide with confusion. "Because sometimes grown-ups make mistakes," Ava said carefully. "Your father and I loved each other once, but things happened that made it impossible for us to stay together. And by the time I knew you 3 were coming, we had already said goodbye. Couldn't you call him and tell him now?" Grace suggested with a child's simple logic. Ava kissed her daughter's forehead. "It's complicated, sweetheart. But know this, you 3 are the best things that ever happened to me. And someday, when you're older, I'll tell you the whole story." That someday came sooner than Ava had expected, arriving in the form of a cream-colored envelope with the Carter family crest embossed in gold. The invitation sat on Ava's desk at Horizon's headquarters, an elegant intrusion from a past she had worked so hard to leave behind. Nicholas Carter was getting married again, to Vanessa Sinclair, daughter of a banking dynasty and, according to the society pages Ava had studiously avoided, the perfect complement to the Carter legacy. What made the invitation truly cruel was the handwritten note that accompanied it, penned in Eleanor Carter's distinctive script. "You should see what real class looks like." For years of building a new life, of raising her children, of creating a company valued at over $3 billion, and Eleanor still saw her as the charity case who had temporarily ensnared her son. "You're not actually considering going, are you?" Marcus asked when he found Ava staring at the invitation, her expression unreadable. I don't know, Ava admitted. Part of me wants to tear this up and forget it ever arrived. But another part wants to show up in a blaze of glory and watch their jaws hit the floor? Marcus finished with a knowing smile. Can't say I'd blame you. Ava shook her head. It's not about revenge. It's about... She paused, searching for the right words. Closure, maybe. Or perhaps it's about finally standing in front of them not as the woman they discarded, but as the woman who rebuilt herself into something stronger. That evening, as the triplets played in the living room of the penthouse apartment that now served as their home, Ava stood on the balcony, watching the city lights flicker to life. The invitation lay on the table beside her, Eleanor's mocking words facing up toward the darkening sky. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever been told you weren't enough, hit that like button right now. And if you want to see what happens when someone tries to humiliate a woman who has nothing left to lose and everything to prove, subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison. Because what happens next at this wedding will leave you breathless. The Carter-Sinclair wedding was destined to be the social event of the season. The New York Times style section had already dubbed it the merger of old money and new technology, a union that would solidify the Carter dynasty for generations to come. The venue, a sprawling Westchester estate with manicured gardens and a private airstrip for the most elite guests, had been secured a year in advance. The guest list read like a who's who of finance, technology, and old money aristocracy. Eleanor Carter had overseen every detail personally, from the hand-calligraphed invitations to the rare orchids imported from Thailand for the centerpieces. This wedding would be her crowning achievement, proof that she had successfully steered her son back to the proper path after his unfortunate detour with Ava Mitchell. Are you sure about this? Marcus asked as he helped Ava prepare for the event. They stood in her office at Horizon headquarters, where a team of stylists had been discreetly brought in. You don't owe them anything, least of all your presence. Ava studied her reflection in the full-length mirror. The gown she had chosen was a masterpiece of understated elegance, a deep midnight blue that complemented her warm brown skin, with clean lines that spoke of confidence rather than flash. No Carter diamonds adorned her neck or wrists. Instead, she wore a single piece of jewelry, a pendant containing 3 tiny birthstones representing her children. I'm not going for them, she said, meeting Marcus's concerned gaze in the mirror. I'm going for myself, and for Noah, Grace, and Ethan. They deserve to know where they come from, even if that knowledge comes with difficult truths. And you're really bringing them? The children have never even met Nicholas. That's precisely why they need to be there. Ava turned to face her friend directly. I've protected them from this part of their heritage for 4 years, but I can't shield them forever. Better they learn about their father on my terms than discover the truth from someone else later. Marcus nodded slowly. Just promise me one thing: if it gets ugly, you'll leave. Those kids don't need to witness a scene. There won't be a scene, Ava assured him with quiet confidence. Eleanor Carter thrives on drama. I won't give her the satisfaction. The triplets were excited about the special trip their mother had planned. Dressed in coordinating outfits that Ava had carefully selected, formal enough for the occasion but still appropriate for 4-year-olds. They bounced with anticipation as they boarded the Horizon 1, the company's revolutionary private aircraft that combined luxury with cutting-edge clean energy technology. Is this a work trip, Mommy? Noah asked as they settled into the plush cabin. Always the most practical of the 3, he was trying to make sense of their unusual Saturday plans. Not exactly, sweetheart. Ava fastened his seatbelt, then moved to help Grace with hers. We're going to a wedding. Someone I used to know is getting married. Will there be cake? Ethan wanted to know, his priorities clear. Ava smiled despite her nerves. I imagine there will be quite an impressive cake. Are they your friend? Grace asked, her perceptive eyes studying her mother's face. Even at 4, she had an uncanny ability to read emotions. Ava hesitated, then answered truthfully. They were once. A long time ago. As the jet soared toward New York, Ava prepared the children as best she could without overwhelming them. She explained that they would meet many new people, including someone very important. The man at the wedding, his name is Nicholas Carter. He's your father, she told them gently, watching their expressions carefully. He doesn't know about you yet, and he might be very surprised to meet you. Why doesn't he know about us? Noah asked, his brow furrowed in confusion. Because sometimes grown-up relationships are complicated, Ava explained. Your father and I parted ways before I knew you three were coming. Today will be the first time he sees you. Will he be happy to meet us? Ethan wondered, a hint of vulnerability in his voice. Ava gathered all three close, her heart aching with love for these innocent children about to face a situation no 4-year-old should have to navigate. I believe he will be very surprised, but also very amazed by what wonderful children you are. Just remember, no matter what happens today, you three are the most important people in my life, and nothing will ever change that. The distinctive sound of the Horizon 1's engines announced their arrival at the Westchester estate. The jet, recognizable to anyone who followed business news, caused an immediate stir among the wedding guests already gathered in the gardens below. Heads turned, conversations paused, and phones were raised to capture the unexpected arrival. Inside the main tent, where the ceremony was minutes from beginning, Eleanor Carter was in her element. Dressed in an exclusive designer ensemble that had cost more than most people's annual salary, she moved among the guests like royalty, accepting compliments on the exquisite arrangements and her son's excellent choice of bride. Vanessa is everything we could have hoped for, she told a cluster of society matrons, her voice carrying just enough to ensure nearby journalists could include the quote in their coverage. The Sinclair family values align perfectly with the Carter legacy. This union will strengthen both dynasties. Nicholas stood near the altar, handsome in his bespoke tuxedo, smiling and shaking hands with well-wishers. To casual observers, he appeared every inch the successful billionaire about to marry the perfect society bride. But those who knew him well might have noticed that his smile never quite reached his eyes that occasionally darted to the entrance as if searching for something, or someone. The first indication that something unexpected was happening came when the wedding planner's assistant rushed in, whispering urgently to her boss. The planner's eyes widened, and she quickly made her way to Eleanor's side, murmuring something that caused the older woman's composure to falter momentarily. What do you mean? Ava Mitchell has arrived? Eleanor hissed, keeping her voice low but intense. She wasn't supposed to actually come. The invitation was merely a reminder of her place. Before the planner could respond, the distinctive sound of jet engines grew louder, and guests began moving toward the windows and doors, curious about the commotion. Eleanor followed, her champagne flute clutched tightly in her manicured hand. The Horizon 1 completed its landing on the private airstrip adjacent to the estate, an arrival point reserved for only the most elite guests. As the aircraft taxied to a stop, the Carter Sinclair wedding guests watched in fascination, many recognizing the revolutionary jet that had been featured in everything from Forbes to National Geographic for its groundbreaking technology. Isn't that Ava Mitchell's company jet? Someone whispered loudly enough for Eleanor to hear. The one that runs on that new clean energy system? Eleanor's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. Who invited? She began, but the words died as the aircraft's door opened and a figure appeared at the top of the stairs. Ava Mitchell descended from the jet with the grace that had always been her hallmark, the afternoon sun catching the subtle shimmer in her gown. But it wasn't her appearance that caused the collective gasp from the assembled guests. It was the three children walking beside her. 3 beautiful 4-year-olds, dressed impeccably, holding their mother's hands. 2 boys and a girl, each bearing the unmistakable Carter features, especially those distinctive gray eyes that had graced Carter family portraits for generations. "Oh my God," someone murmured. "They look just like Nicholas." The whispers spread like wildfire through the crowd. Phones were raised, capturing the moment that would undoubtedly dominate social media within hours. The perfect Carter Sinclair wedding was suddenly overshadowed by a development no one had anticipated. Inside the tent, Nicholas had noticed the commotion and moved toward the entrance, curious about what had captured everyone's attention. When he stepped outside and saw Ava walking toward the venue with 3 small children, the color drained from his face. Recognition, confusion, and shock passed across his features in rapid succession. Eleanor moved quickly, intercepting Ava before she could reach the main gathering. "How dare you?" she hissed, voice low but venomous. "This is a private ceremony." Ava smiled, the calm smile of someone who had nothing left to fear. "I was invited, Eleanor. By you." She produced the invitation from her clutch. "I simply brought my family, as the card suggested." "They're not," Eleanor began, but fell silent as Noah looked up at her with eyes identical to her son's. "Grandmother?" he asked innocently, the word causing Eleanor to physically recoil. "Mother." Nicholas's voice came from behind them. He stood transfixed, gaze moving between the 3 children and Ava. "What's happening?" "Nothing that concerns you today," Eleanor attempted, placing a hand on his arm. "The ceremony is about to." "Are they mine?" Nicholas asked directly, ignoring his mother completely for perhaps the first time in his life. Ava met his gaze steadily. "Yes, Noah, Grace, and Ethan. They're 4 years old next month." The silence that followed seemed to stretch into infinity. Guests pretended not to listen while straining to catch every word. The bride had now emerged from the bridal suite, her expression shifting from confusion to dawning horror as she took in the scene unfolding on her wedding day. "Why didn't you tell me?" Nicholas finally managed, his voice barely audible. "You didn't ask," Ava replied simply. "You believed I was capable of violence without question. You served me divorce papers without a conversation. Why would I trust you with something as precious as our children?" Eleanor's composure cracked completely. "She's lying, Nicholas. This is obviously some scheme." "Stop." Nicholas's command was quiet but absolute. For the first time, Eleanor saw something in her son's face she had never witnessed before: defiance. "I want to hear from Ava." But Ava was already turning to leave, her purpose fulfilled. She hadn't come for reconciliation or even confrontation. She had come to reclaim the narrative, to show them who she truly was, and what their actions had cost. "We should go," she said to the children. "We have a flight to catch." "Wait," Nicholas called, moving toward them. "Please, Ava. We need to talk about this." She paused, looking back at the man she had once loved with her whole heart. "For years ago, you chose to believe lies without giving me a chance to speak the truth. Now you have to live with that choice." "They're my children too," Nicholas said, his voice breaking slightly. "You can't just walk away." "Can't I?" Ava asked quietly. "Isn't that exactly what you did to me? The difference is, I'm giving you the courtesy of knowing they exist. That's more than you deserved." As she guided the children back toward the waiting jet, whispers erupted behind them. The perfect wedding was unraveling, the carefully constructed facade crumbling in real time. If you've ever had to walk away from someone who didn't value you enough to fight for the truth, hit that like button. And if you believe that sometimes the most powerful statement isn't what you say, but simply showing up as your authentic self, subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison. Because this story isn't over yet, and what happens next will show you exactly what true dignity looks like in the face of betrayal. Nicholas stood frozen, watching as Ava led their children, his children, back toward the waiting aircraft. For years, he had missed 4 years of their lives. First steps, first words, first everything. Gone, irretrievable, because of a choice he had made in a moment of blind loyalty to his mother. "Nicholas!" Vanessa's voice cut through his thoughts. She stood beside him now, her wedding gown a frothy confection of lace and pearls, her expression a mixture of confusion and anger. "What is happening? Who are those children?" He turned to her slowly, as if waking from a trance. "They're my children with Ava." "You're what?" Vanessa's voice rose sharply. "You have children you never told me about?" "I didn't know," he said simply, his eyes drawn back to the retreating figures. "I didn't know they existed." Eleanor inserted herself between them, her social mask firmly back in place. "Darling," This is clearly some sort of desperate ploy. We can discuss it after the ceremony. The guests are waiting, and there isn't going to be a ceremony. Nicholas's words fell like stones into still water. Not today. What are you saying? Vanessa demanded, tears threatening to ruin her perfect makeup. You're calling off our wedding because your ex-wife showed up with some children? They're not some children, Nicholas replied, a new certainty in his voice. They're my children, and I need to talk to their mother. Without waiting for a response, he strode after Ava, ignoring the gasps and murmurs that followed him. Behind him, Eleanor called his name with increasing desperation, but for once, her voice held no power over him. Ava, wait! He called as he reached the airstrip. She had already helped the children up the stairs into the jet, but paused at the sound of his voice. Please, just 5 minutes. She turned, her expression carefully neutral. The children are tired, Nicholas. It's been a long day for them. I understand, but I can't let you leave like this. Not again. He stopped at the bottom of the stairs, looking up at her. 4 years ago, I made the worst mistake of my life. I chose to believe a lie because it was easier than facing a truth that would have forced me to stand up to my mother. I've regretted it every day since. Regret doesn't change what happened, Ava replied, though something in her expression softened slightly. It doesn't erase the fact that you threw away our marriage without even giving me the chance to defend myself. You're right. Nothing can change that. Nicholas took a step up the stairs, then stopped, respecting her space. But please don't punish our children for my mistake. They deserve to know their father, even if that father was once a coward who didn't deserve their mother. Ava studied him for a long moment, weighing his words against 4 years of raising their children alone. Finally, she spoke. I'm not keeping them from you out of punishment, Nicholas. I'm protecting them from experiencing the same betrayal I did. How do I know you won't choose your mother over them too, when it matters most? Before Nicholas could respond, a small face appeared in the doorway behind Ava. Grace, her dark curls framing a face that was so clearly a blend of both her parents, looked at Nicholas with curious eyes. Are you really our daddy? She asked, her voice carrying clearly in the tense silence. Nicholas felt his heart constrict at the simple question. Yes, he answered, his voice thick with emotion. I am. Why haven't you visited us before? Noah appeared beside his sister, his expression more guarded, more skeptical. At 4 years old, he already showed signs of the protective instinct that would shape his character. Because I didn't know about you, Nicholas answered honestly. And that's my greatest regret. Did you stop loving Mommy? Ethan asked, joining his siblings, his innocent question cutting straight to the heart of the matter. Nicholas looked past the children to Ava, whose composure had finally cracked slightly at her son's question. No, he said quietly. I never stopped loving your mother. I just forgot, for a while, how to be worthy of her love. A commotion behind them drew their attention. Eleanor was approaching, flanked by security personnel and a distraught Vanessa. Nicholas, this is absurd, Eleanor called. You're making a scene. Think of the guests. Think of Vanessa. I'm thinking of my children. Nicholas cut her off, turning to face his mother. For the first time in my life, Mother, I'm thinking clearly about what truly matters. Eleanor's face hardened. These children appear out of nowhere on your wedding day, and you're ready to throw away everything for them? How do you even know they're yours? Look at them, Mother. Nicholas gestured toward the 3 small faces watching from the jet doorway. They have my eyes, my father's chin, your mother's nose. They are Carter's, whether you choose to acknowledge them or not. This is what she wanted, Eleanor hissed, gesturing toward Ava. To disrupt your life, to ruin your future with Vanessa. Can't you see you're playing right into her hands? Nicholas shook his head slowly. No, Mother. This is what you created when you lied about Ava attacking you. When you manipulated me into turning against the only woman I've ever truly loved. These children exist because of your lies, and I've missed 4 years of their lives because I was too weak to question you. A gasp went through the small crowd that had gathered at a respectful distance. Vanessa stepped forward, her expression shifting from hurt to shock. "What do you mean?" she lied. "Eleanor, what is he talking about?" Eleanor's carefully constructed facade began to crumble. "Nicholas, you can't possibly believe. I saw the security footage," he interrupted quietly. 3 months after Ava left, I was cleaning out her office at Carter Enterprises, and I found the backup drive for the mansion's security system. The cameras captured everything, Mother. You slapping Ava. You falling to the ground pretending she had hit you. All of it. The silence that followed was deafening. Eleanor's face drained of color as she realized her carefully constructed narrative was collapsing around her. "Why didn't you say anything?" Ava asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "If you knew the truth 3 months after I left, why didn't you come after me?" Nicholas's shoulders sagged with the weight of his confession. "Pride. Shame. By the time I discovered the truth, you had disappeared completely. Changed your number, moved away. The divorce was final. And I couldn't face what I had done. How easily I had betrayed you." Ava absorbed this new information, her mind racing to recontextualize the past 4 years. All this time, she had believed Nicholas had chosen his mother over her without ever learning the truth. To discover he had known, had carried that knowledge while she struggled alone with pregnancy and new motherhood, opened fresh wounds she thought had long since scarred over. "You knew," she repeated, her voice stronger now. "You knew, and you let me walk away. You let me raise our children alone." "I have no excuse," Nicholas admitted. "Only an explanation that sounds hollow even to my own ears. I told myself you were better off without me, that I didn't deserve a second chance, that finding you would only bring more pain into your life." "That wasn't your decision to make," Ava said, anger finally breaking through her careful composure. "Those children deserved a father. Whether or not you deserved a second chance with me was irrelevant." The triplets had grown quiet, sensing the gravity of the adult conversation happening before them. Grace slipped her small hand into Ava's, while Noah and Ethan pressed closer to their mother, instinctively protective. "You're right," Nicholas acknowledged. "It wasn't my decision to make. I was a coward then, and I have no right to ask for anything now." He took a deep breath, then continued. "But I'm asking anyway. Not for forgiveness, I haven't earned that, but for a chance to know my children, to be part of their lives in whatever way you deem appropriate." Eleanor stepped forward again, her voice taking on the commanding tone that had shaped Nicholas's entire life. "Nicholas, you're not thinking clearly. This is your wedding day. Hundreds of guests are waiting. The merger with Sinclair Industries depends on this marriage. You can't throw everything away on a whim." For the first time, Nicholas smiled. A sad, knowing smile that acknowledged the manipulation that had controlled him for so long. "That's where you're wrong, Mother. This isn't a whim. This is the first truly clear decision I've made in years." He turned back to Ava. "Whatever you decide, I'll respect it. But please, don't leave without giving me some way to contact you, to begin making amends to our children." Ava looked at the 3 small faces turned up to hers, then at Nicholas, and finally at Eleanor and the wedding guests watching from a distance. In that moment, she realized that her journey had come full circle. For years ago, she had left this world broken and alone. Now she stood before them whole, successful, and surrounded by the love of her children. "We're staying at the Four Seasons tonight," she said finally. "You can come by tomorrow morning at 10. The children and I will have breakfast with you, and we can begin discussing what happens next." Relief washed over Nicholas's face. "Thank you. I'll be there." As Ava turned to guide the children back into the jet, Eleanor made one last desperate attempt. "Ava, surely you can see that this disruption is inappropriate. If you truly cared about these children, you wouldn't use them as pawns in whatever game you're playing." Ava paused, then turned to face her former mother-in-law directly. "They're not pawns, Eleanor. They're children, your grandchildren, and they're not a game or a disruption or a scheme. They're the consequence of your lies and Nicholas's choices." Her voice remained calm, but carried an authority that silenced even Eleanor. "I didn't come here today for revenge or to cause a scene. I came because after 4 years of raising these children alone, building a company from nothing, and reconstructing my life from the ashes you created, I wanted you to see exactly what you threw away. Not just me, but them. 3 beautiful, brilliant children who have grown up without their father or their grandmother because of your pride. With those words, Ava guided the children into the aircraft. As the door closed behind them, Nicholas turned to face the wreckage of his wedding day. Vanessa had already retreated, surrounded by her bridesmaids and family. Guests were dispersing, phones in hand, undoubtedly spreading the dramatic turn of events across social media. And Eleanor stood alone, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. "What have you done?" she whispered, watching as the Horizon 1 prepared for takeoff. "What I should have done 4 years ago," Nicholas replied. "Chosen truth over convenience. Love over appearances." He looked at his mother with new eyes, not with anger, but with a kind of sad clarity. "I'll always be your son, Mother. But from now on, I'll be their father first." As the jet lifted into the evening sky, Ava settled back in her seat, watching her children excitedly point out the diminishing landscape below. The weight she had carried for 4 years felt lighter somehow. Not gone. Some burdens never truly disappear, but transformed into something she could finally begin to set aside. "Mommy, is he really going to have breakfast with us tomorrow?" Grace asked, her perceptive eyes studying Ava's face. "Yes, sweetheart. Your father wants to get to know you. Will he come live with us?" Ethan wondered, always the most straightforward of the 3. "No, not like that," Ava explained gently. "But he might become part of our lives in a new way." Noah, ever protective, frowned slightly. "What if he makes you sad again?" Ava gathered her son close, kissing the top of his head. "That's a very grown-up worry, Noah. But you don't need to protect me. I'm stronger now than I was before. We all are." As New York faded behind them, Ava Mitchell looked toward the horizon. The namesake of the company she had built from nothing, the direction she had always faced even in her darkest moments. Tomorrow would bring a new chapter, complicated and uncertain. But for the first time in 4 years, she allowed herself to consider that the future might include healing for wounds she had long since accepted as permanent. Not for Eleanor's sake. Some bridges were truly burned beyond repair. Not even for Nicholas, whose journey toward redemption had only just begun. But for Noah, Grace, and Ethan, who deserved to know all parts of their heritage, both the strength they inherited from their mother and the legacy that came with the Carter name. And perhaps, in the smallest corner of her heart, for herself as well. Because true victory wasn't found in revenge or in walking away. It was found in moving forward with grace, in showing her children that even the deepest wounds could heal, and in the quiet dignity of offering second chances when they were truly earned. If the story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to find the strength to offer someone a second chance? Or have you had to rebuild your life after betrayal? Remember that sometimes the greatest power isn't in walking away, but in setting the terms for how someone can walk back into your life. Until next time, this is Mr. Harrison, reminding you that true class isn't about wealth or status. It's about facing life's challenges with dignity, strength, and an open heart.